Is there anything better than the look on somebody's face when you've given them a really fantastic gift? The truth is no, there isn't anything better. Is there anything worse than actually shopping for that gift? It's awful. Nobody likes holiday shopping. It's the worst. Well, luckily, Gamebox Monthly has got you covered. Simply go to GameboxMonthly.com, click Give as a Gift, figure out who you want it to go to. It's great for everybody. It's great for the families that you know. It's great for the gamers and the nerds that you know. It's great for old folks, for young folks, for teens, everybody. Not only are you going to be giving them awesome indie tabletop games, but it's a lot more than that. You're giving them the experience. You're giving them the discovery of sitting down with a group of people that they absolutely love and reconnecting and actually spending time with people. You're giving them memories that will last forever. So do that and be the best gift giver this season. Go to www.gameboxmonthly.com and rediscover social. Hello, yes, let's talk about it indeed. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another installment of Elaborate. I hope you guys are all enjoying your holiday season. I have an incredibly fun guest with me today, and I'm excited because I don't really know a ton about him. I'm kind of starting from scratch. There's no preconceived notions, which is nice. He's the host of Marvel Movie News and a general online geek guru. He's an actor. He is a writer. He's Coy Jondreau. How's it going, Coy?
That was good, man.
Got it in right in the money right there.
It was magic. I love the time and the setup. I love the space.
Thanks.
Anyone that can't see this, which is everyone, it's a great space.
Yeah, it's the Dragon's Den. We've named it for Dragon Wagon Radio.
Big fan.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you know, we do what we can.
I love thoughtfulness and the level of detail in like a place for coffee and like the engineering of comfort is paramount, and I respect that.
I am also admittedly like I'm such a host.
Yeah,
like
it's there.
When it comes to I don't mean that like as far as radio hosts, because people who listen know that is clearly not the truth. I meant like, you know, hospitality. Like I think it's because I grew up in like that super nobody was ever home and nobody was ever allowed over my house environment.
So now you're making up for lost time.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Because it's legit, audience. It's every detail. all the T's are crossed.
Well, thanks for that. You know how to get on my good side right off the bat. You compliment me leading into the show.
Now I'm going to get the easy questions.
Yeah, now I'm not going to talk about all of your flaws. No, what am I kidding? That's what this is all about.
All the cement boots in the river.
So we met through previous guest of the show, Maggie Levin, because you were in, people in the show know well about at this point, the Rocky Horror Hipster Show.
I am so proud of that show.
That was a fantastic show.
It was one of the strangest experiences I've had because I'm not...
But a good strange.
Oh, absolutely. I'm an actor, but usually film and TV. I'm usually a camera. You know, I feel comfortable with the camera. And I love hosting.
Stage guy.
I just didn't know it.
Right.
Like I just didn't know what that world would be. And then they gave me this part that had been somebody else's. He had to drop out, so I had 3 weeks to learn the narrator in Rocky, which is that's a serviceable amount of time. But when you're coming into a production late, there's that added pressure of everybody already knows each other. There's comfort. Yeah. And the narrator on paper is the most boring. Like it's a guy that tells you stuff.
Yeah, and you definitely did not make it boring.
But for the first 2 out of the 3 weeks, I was like, why did they hand me this? Like, what do they think? I'm not a British guy in a wheelchair. Like, what is this archetype?
Right.
So then I decided to make the narrator Deadpool, and I realized that the callbacks and the experience of Rocky, the inherent fourth wall breaking of Rocky Horror, is something that I almost exclusively could play with in that way.
Oh, so, I didn't even know that you were doing it as Deadpool. That's sort of what you were like.
That was my spirit animal. Like Wade Wilson was my spirit animal.
That's pretty brilliant,
right? Because you have the fourth wall as an option. You can make the callbacks part of his repertoire.
Right.
So I learned all the callbacks. There's you can't know them all, but I learned all the callbacks, the traditional ones.
Right.
And then I played the part as much on stage as with the audience.
And when you say the callbacks, you mean all of the things that the audience does,
just shouts out while the
for
play
people
is going.
who might not understand.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people out there who might not know that Rocky Horror is an interactive show at this point,
and the level of interactivity is insane.
Yeah, it's like I know like other popular things that there are like the movie The Room, which of course a disaster writer is based on. Like that's one of those things where people go to it and it's so It's not nearly as about watching the event.
Yeah, it's about
as much
being
as being
the event.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I loved about the play is once I realized what that was, once I experienced it live, it's a different animal. And that show, like we did 3 years of it. We took this year off because we thought we were done, but we can't be. So we're going back next year.
Oh, really? It's gonna be another one.
This might be a scoop. We're gonna do it.
Ooh,
next
are you
year.
dropping the bomb here on Elaborate?
Knowledge. So yeah, next.
Were you allowed to say that?
I will find out when they yell at me.
Maggie, I'm gonna tag Maggie in this. She's gonna be like, "Wait, you're not supposed to tell people." So Rocky Horror is coming back.
In advance.
I think when we talked about Maggie was on the show and we talked about Rocky Horror, she was like, "Yeah, it was so much fun. I just, that was
past
great."
Past tense.
Yeah, exactly.
I 98%. We're gonna fight. We're gonna try to get back.
That's fun.
And it's crazy because all of us have gone on to do a lot of things, and the
Right.
schedule's got insane and everything else. And that's a great sign that you have a good cast.
Totally.
But, it was a great way to meet a lot of people.
So you mentioned obviously Wade Wilson and Deadpool. You're, as people will learn if they don't know you already, a giant comic book nerd.
Yeah.
And an actor. Are those sort of the two? Like, I feel like everybody has we're the slash generation, or yeah,
100%.
yeah. And I feel like everybody has the first and second slashes, but they're not sure which one comes first.
Yeah, I'd say I used to lead with actor, and then I discovered how much I like saying my words because I speak weird.
Right.
Like I transcribing my dialogue or even hearing me back out of context. Like I don't grammar, I don't speak, I just go. And like when I have other people's words, it's almost like I think that people from the South hearing Sorkin, there's that level of that's English, but also that's not how people like. It's a very city talk. You know, it's a very certain. And I think that the way I talk is like another dialect that's really hard to quantify. So when I have other people's words, I didn't enjoy it as an actor,
right?
Because I was like, this isn't what words are,
right?
So I like hosting because
I have that same problem, except for me, it's like I'm thankful when I'm like, oh great, these aren't my words. Oh thank God, these are not my words. Like this is how people actually talk.
It's so weird to me how like when you look at dialogue and like just normal, it's so strange. It's not.
So where are you from? Where is the voice from?
I'm from Boston.
You're from.
Well,
I
born
don't
in Virginia.
hear it.
No, I dropped that as quick as I could.
Was it by design?
It's really hard when you have a Boston accent to not be assumed to be either a sports fan or violent or ignorant.
Or violent.
Well, there's like a certain connotation to the accent.
I'm a New Yorker, so I get it.
There's an accent.
Or
like
for me, it's rude.
Brooklyn has like the rude or aggressive. Boston, I feel like people think you're violent or like judging them.
Right.
Or both.
Yeah.
And so I lost the accent for the sake of friends. Like I wanted to be more,
Really? And it was a conscious thing that you did.
I
like
didn't have it too strong, but I had enough.
And you attempted to stop it.
Yes.
Did you take classes for that?
No, I listened to a lot of YouTube of different accents and tried to find what a neutral accent was by way of blending everything together.
But all right. So here's my question though: is like, are you purposely trying to not have a Boston accent right now in all conversation?
Not anymore,
Okay.
but there was about not 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years where I was.
You're very conscious.
Yeah, I was.
Oh my God,
aware
you must have been the worst person to talk to.
It was
because you were probably in your head about
just
everything you were saying.
My next sentence.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when you act with an accent, you settle into it, but you're definitely aware of it in the back.
Right.
And then when I drink, sometimes to this day, it comes back out. And I say wicked a lot, and that's a big tell.
For me, it's generally like if I'm on the phone with like one of my cousins or somebody back on my island. Like if I'm on the phone for more than 20 minutes, when I get off the phone, I'm all of a sudden all those always become my W's and everything gets a real Long Island
on me. It's a different front of mouth talk.
And it's not something that I try to do, but it's so for me, I think it's all influence based.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And when I left New York and I lived in Florida for a short while, I think like it kind of just got broken down a little bit, but it's still, I still have a thick Long Island accent. It's just nowhere near my
what
family's.
It was.
Oh.
And when you go home,
man, when I go home, I'm like, oh my God, you people sound so weird.
Right? When I just went to Boston,
family.
and I was just like, this isn't like, because it's not even English, it's just words wrong.
Right.
Like Boston's not even like a dialect, it's just saying things wrong.
No, yeah, the only dialect is probably like certain slang terms that people that only they know. Like only they'll know like what a Southie means or like sense. Although there's some things. My Aunt Judy's thick Bostonite and pop.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like
bubbler.
Bubbler. Yeah.
Get a drink from the bubbler.
Yeah,
What's a bubbler?
Yeah.
You get water out of it.
So did you spend your entire life growing up in Boston?
So I was 0 through 5 Virginia.
Virginia. Where in Virginia?
Near North Carolina border, Greensboro area. I was from Danville, or technically Blair's, but it's a tiny like 3 streetlight town.
Right.
So South Virginia, and then 5 to 8 in upstate New York, and then
where in upstate?
Near Rochester, in Hilton.
Oh,
near Buffalo and Rochester
Yeah,
area.
that's where my mother lives.
Oh, no way. Yeah, so I liked Upstate a lot. Too much snow, though. And then from New York, we went to just outside Boston. I did Chelmsford, Lowell, and that area.
So what year did you move to Boston?
So I would have been 8, so that would have been 96.
Okay, so that's what I meant. I meant what year old.
Year tagged.
I wasn't trying to. Yeah, I wasn't trying to.
I've been outed as 29.
Yeah. Oh, geez. In today's society, you're doomed. Next year, you're useless.
Got to get that AARP card.
Where do you consider home? I love asking this question because I know so many artistic people have this like, oh, I lived in 5 places by the time I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested in where people consider home.
For me, it's Boston. I love the concept of Virginia, but I couldn't hang with the pace. But Boston, I love that people work very hard, very quickly, don't take any gruff. There's something about the Boston work ethic that I really respect.
And you were in high school through Boston.
Yeah, middle school, high school, and then...
And I feel like that... I always state that I feel like home is wherever people went to high school for the most part. Because that's when you became who you are.
Right, it shapes you.
This is just me, is I just have such a shitty memory about childhood in general that like I don't remember pre-high school a lot. Like I have fuzzy memories and I have photos that help remind me of things. But I feel like I came to be who I was in, like you said, middle school, high school. So I'm like, that's home.
Yeah, that's what shapes you. And like those influences, those friends, those people.
Do you mind if I ask why you moved so much?
So my mom, Virginia, and then my dad, he got a job at Xerox, which brought us to Upstate. And then he went from Xerox to HP, which brought us into Boston.
So what did your dad do? Was he some sort of technical consultant?
He runs a printing press. Like he's the lead of the printing press over at these companies. So he would always be like where they need to have he teaches. So wherever they had the hub of teaching people, we generally go to where that was.
Gotcha. So he was like somebody who taught people how to run
these mega printing presses.
Gotcha.
So wherever the company hub was, we ended up.
Gotcha.
And it's funny because he was a military kid, but it felt like we were military kids.
Right.
But it was through tech.
Did he? Do you know if he moved around a lot when he was a kid?
He must have. Yeah.
I wonder how he felt about
doing the same.
Yeah, installing that into your life.
I felt normal to him. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have even.
I just wonder, I'm immediately creating the narrative in my head of like your dad hated that his dad moved around so much.
Now I've got to do it for technology.
And now he's so angry at himself. He's like, oh, I promised my kids I'd never give them what I didn't have.
This would never happen.
Yeah.
No, but I got lucky, man. I had teen parents. And
really,
yeah.
Any siblings?
Yeah. So I've got a 10 years younger brother and sister. But I was
10 years younger.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so bizarre because this is such a rare thing. Usually people have the oldest because I think the youngest is usually the artsy fartsy kid.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean?
I'm the oldest by a bit.
And that's the thing, is it? So you are my siblings to me. My brother's 7 years older and my sisters are 10 and 11 years older.
Yeah.
They're both about 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And that is such a huge age difference.
It's insane.
I feel like it's a different relationship.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As much as I love my brother and I love my sisters, they are, make up who I am. But with that said, my cousins, who were only 2 years younger than me,
different relationship.
That I feel like so much more in tune with who they are.
Yeah.
Because just we're closer in age and we did more things together.
What's crazy on my end is that my mom is only 6 years different than me to my sister. Because my mom was 16 when she had me.
Wait. Start that over.
So the differential between myself and my sister, 10
Yes.
years. Myself and my mother, 16 years. So there's only a 6-year differential between me and my sibling and me and my mother.
That is crazy.
So there's no generation gap in my experience. I don't understand the Beatles. I don't understand that era of music because I didn't raise. I was raised like my dad brought me to a Slipknot concert because he enjoyed Slipknot. Like I listened to the same music as my family.
So you're 30. So your parents are 45, 46.
Yeah, mid 40s.
So literally, your parents are my siblings' age.
I have many friends that are my parents' age.
Yeah,
now,
and my best friend Tony. Yeah,
very common for me to have friends that are my parents. Like my co-host, my ex co-host now on Marvel Movie News was closer to my parents' age than mine.
Wow,
and that's just normal for me. And I've always been friends with older people, so it's always skewed that they were
Do you think that your parents were forced into being a little bit more mature? Or did you think you had kind of immature parents?
I see my parents, my mom had me I was on purpose, which is insane to me. Cause
at 16.
Yeah. And that would mean I'd have a third grader now. I'd have, you know what I mean? I'd have I'd almost have an adult. And my mom is just like a champion. So she raised me at 16 and I turned out okay-ish. And
let's get to this.
We'll get to that later.
Let's figure that out.
But my dad is technically my stepdad, but he swooped in when I was 1.5 and he was 18. So my dad literally chose to have a child as a teenager because he was like this one. And that's why the last name's Jandreau. I'm not French, but he is, and he is
So that's
as important to me.
Is your adopted name. So is your name legally something hyphen Jandreau?
No, it's Coy Jondreau legally. I changed it at 18.
And do you know anything about your biological father?
He was cool enough to my mom until he wasn't. So like it just didn't work.
So do you think that it was a mom decision?
Oh, my mom was like, "Oh, I'm gonna raise him this way, so we're gonna be over here." And then my dad basically
Yes, your biological. We'll use the term biological father and your father, since you already call your stepfather your father.
Yeah, I do. So my dad swept in very young and took care of me ever since. And then my bio dad, he just wasn't in the picture, and that was always cool. Like I was always fine. Like it never felt like a disconnect because I had a dad. So I
yeah. And did you guys have any relationship, or did you literally not know him?
Popped in and out, really? but not in a while. Every so often I hear a thing, and then I'm like, oh, cool, good for him. But it never really felt like a dad because I had one. It never felt like a lacking, so I never sought it out.
That's interesting. I mean, as somebody who the people who listen to the show are sick of my story at this point, but my father took off before I was born.
Yeah,
and so I also had dad, but I didn't have a dad, didn't have my biological father, I should say. But like, whereas I didn't necessarily have a stepdad, I had a caveat of I was raised by, I lovingly call them the coven, by like 6 different women.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like my brother, like I said, who's 7 years older, and then my godfather, my uncle, like I had so much that I never really felt like the kid without the dad, unless people pitied me. Then I felt it. Was there ever a point where you felt like, oh, like people pitied me because my dad wasn't around?
No, because it's funny
because you guys were still a family unit.
Yeah, and most people up until like doing stuff like this, when people ask me, and I'm not gonna lie or be dishonest, like they didn't even know because it's weird. But you know that thing when you are around someone so much, you start to have the same mannerisms.
Right.
I actually look more like my stepdad than my dad to me.
That's
because my dad and I are
mostly
like
because of mannerisms and stuff. Yeah.
And like my dad and I are like bros. Like my dad's like one of my best friends. So when people meet him, they're like, oh, of course that's Coy's dad. So it was never a question. Because it's like we're bros,
right?
And we were also super close. I think because of not just age, but because of his choice. Like he chose to have a kid, and he got me into comics. Like so that what I'm doing today is because of him.
Well, we'll get on that, but just because this scenario is fascinating to me. Your younger siblings now, same parents?
Yeah, my stepdad's kids are half
mom and dad are still together?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And my little brother and sister are my brother and sister. Like
right, yeah. Where are they?
So after I moved a couple years later, my family moved to Atlanta once again for more computer companies move too much.
Right.
So Atlanta
they're getting them bids from other cities to
like,
bring the work.
It's like the studio systems, like taxes.
Yeah.
So ATL. And my little brother just moved back to Boston. So my bro's in Boston, my sister's with my family in Atlanta.
Interesting.
So my brother moved back because he loves Boston too.
And I'm trying to do the math. So your brother is 19?
My brother is 20, turning 21 in January.
Gotcha. So he's out on his own.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. He's out on his own.
Sister is still with
family.
She's about to graduate high school.
She already has. She's 19. So
gotcha.
she's doing that like year off before college, figuring life out like I did.
What's it like to be the older sibling? Do you like impart wisdom and shit like that?
I try to, man, but I was a fuck up. Like I definitely had a phase before I knew what I wanted that I was just like a drunk.
Really?
So it's funny to like try to impart wisdom by way of like, don't do what I did.
Right. Yeah, that's that do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah, like I think that I always knew I wanted to be an actor, always knew I wanted to be in entertainment, always knew that I wanted to appeal to the masses with things. But I didn't know what the path was. So I had a phase of like, I'll sort it out later.
Yeah. Did you, well, actually, let's touch on it. At what point did you know? Like, what was it that stemmed the acting bug?
So when I was little, as soon as I could walk.
Okay.
When I was like the weeest of wee, my family always had a camera on me.
Oh, okay.
Because I was the first grandkid.
Right.
And I was like you, raised by an army. So not only did I have my dad and my mom, it was my aunts and uncles and grandparents. And my grandparents had my mom young, so they were only in their 40s when I was born.
Wait, God, that's insane. Your grandparents were in their 40s when you were
my grandparents are currently in their mid to late 60s. I think they're like 67.
Wow.
So
that's a tight generation.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah.
When I was born, I met my great grandparents.
Wow.
My great grandparents only recently, I've lost them in the last 5 years.
Wow.
So I've gotten to know that many generations because they all, like I said, we were on purpose. Like, I'm the weird one. Like my mom had me on purpose.
Like you're already 30 and you don't have 3 kids.
What are
What's
you
wrong
doing?
With you?
My parents were done having kids by the time they were my age, and I have a 10-year junior.
Yeah,
like isn't that
that's crazy.
So yeah, I've had but when I was a kid, since I was the first grandkid and since camcorders were like all the rage on the mountain in Virginia, we all lived on one mountain, which is cool.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hang on a second. So we all lived on one mountain, he says. Like this is a sort of statement that somebody just throws out there.
So
we all lived on one mountain.
Virginia, like super deep Virginia, is very rural. Like there's I've known family to live in places where when they put in a street light, they had a parade. Like I've known family to be from such deep south that it's like, we're paving the road.
Right. Yeah.
So we all lived on a mountain that basically
Mount Jandreau.
Yeah. So my grandparents, my mom's mom. So my mom's maiden name is Merrick's, which is my middle name. So when I changed my name to Jandreau at 18, I took my grandparents as my middle name because they raised me too.
I love that.
So all of my names are indicative of people that shaped me.
I love that.
So Coy, Merrick's, Jondreau. I always went by Coy. The Coy stayed. Merrick's my mom's maiden name. Jandreau, my dad. So the Merrick's mountain was basically across the street were my mom's sister and husband. Down the mountain was my grandparents' parents, so my great grandparents. Down to the left was another set of aunt and uncle, and then within, long story long, within a mile radius, I could visit upwards of 20 family members.
Wow.
So family reunions were just dinner.
That's insane.
So I was raised by a fleet.
It's you guys you sound like those wilderness people.
Yeah, but like imagine wilderness people that went to Blockbuster every Friday and got like we had this bond.
And were you guys at least near some sort of civilization?
Yeah, there was
I mean, hopefully you guys weren't inbreeding up on the mountain. I mean,
we're on this one mountain together. No,
there's some strangers.
25 minutes away was like a little town that had a Blockbuster and food and the like.
Gotcha.
But it's funny because I always thought of that as normal. So when people are like, I don't like going home for Christmas, I'm like, yo, Christmas is lit.
Yeah.
Like my family's so close.
Right. Yeah.
I call my grandma all the time.
That's great.
And most people don't call their parents that often.
No, yeah. That tight-knit family is rare, and especially nowadays, especially also in our social climate, because most people just can't stand their old relatives because their old relatives tend to be more conservative and
their
difficult.
generation gap is smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So my grandparents are great. They wanted me to be as happy as I could, and they knew I loved entertaining. So I always had a camera on me. So I remember one of the stories they retell all the time. It's kind of funny how you have a memory, but only because it's been told.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, I say that all the time. I say that I don't have memories. I have stories that people have told me about myself.
Like they incept you with yourself.
Exactly.
Like I've been supplemented.
Oh my God, I'm so happy you said that.
Oh, it's
I hope
real,
Paul
man.
Bianchi is listening, because Paul Bianchi keeps challenging me on my terrible memory, and I'm like, that's common. Like people, I don't think we remember stuff as much as we remember people telling us stuff.
Yeah, because that's why you can't take like visual cues in court seriously, because you could tell someone the shirt was blue. If you tell them enough, the shirt was red, then it's red.
Right.
Anyway, when I was young, they filmed me to such a point that I would crash my riding car or bike or whatever on camera and be like, "Did you get that?" and be like bleeding.
Right.
And like they would be like, "Don't do that," but yes. So I was like a little stunt kid, little actor boy forever. So since I can remember talking, I've been wanting to act.
Okay, so the reason I asked that question of when is because you clearly have these young, cool parents and young, cool grandparents. And your grandparents are younger than my actual parents.
That's crazy.
But you said that you didn't really know and you kind of faltered for a little while. Was there any like direction from parents? Like, were they like, "Oh, here, you do this thing," or was it just sort of like, you can do whatever you want, but we don't really know how to help you with that?
Well, my faltering, I feel like, was my own doing, and it was actually it was probably shorter than I made it sound originally. It was more like in high school, I was like, I'm not working as hard as I should.
Right.
Like I was the kid that aced the SATs and aced the midterms and aced the finals, but then got like a 1.6 GPA. Like I was the kid that was clearly the what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, similar.
And like my parents were amazing about it. When they needed to be strict, were strict, which they weren't like, you're grounded for 8 months, but in a kid's brain, 2 days is 8 months.
Sure,
so I can't even quantify what that was.
Right.
But also at the same time, they were super supportive. When I wanted to take a year off before college, they were like, "Oh, that's a good idea because you'll grow up." Like
that's great.
Like I got a job and they supported me.
I wish that I had done that, because then I would have never gone to college and wasted it.
I took a year off and then went for a year, and then I knew both sides.
Right.
And that was all their idea.
Where did you go to college?
I went to a community college in outside of Boston.
Same.
And I learned that the money I was spending wasn't going to help an entertainment industry.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have stopped after a year if not for taking a year off, which is my dad, my mom supported all of that, and they've always been the most supportive. They're amazing.
Right. So yeah, it doesn't seem like there was that much time in the
No,
air.
but in my brain, when I look at being, it's only, I'm judging myself because of my being the older influence. Like, I only think of myself as a bad kid when I'm comparing to the impression I want to give to my little brother and sister.
Right.
I'm just super protective.
Right.
It could have been like a week, but in my brain, I'm like, I had 8 years of, I've been to prison twice.
Right.
Like, no.
I mean, my waiver was like 7 years. So,
but you know what I mean? Like, when you look back at any time that you made mistakes, in the hindsight of being an adult, and I'm gonna look back at 29 and be like, what the fuck?
I mean, you're 5 years younger than I am, and you're out here doing the same stuff, hustling. So as far as like, quote, making a mistake of it, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, you weren't making a mistake. It's come up a couple times on the show now, and I think it's going to become a running theme. And that is Lenny Kravitz quote that was given to me by Jordan Black. And that is, college is for people who don't know what they want to do. And sometimes that same thing is just your early 20s is for somebody who doesn't know what they want to do.
I'm so glad I did that back home than here.
Yeah.
Like, I could have easily been the kid. Like,
you know, although I struggle with that because, like you said, you have friends that are your parents' age.
Yeah.
Equally so, I'm sure you have friends that are 21, 22,
100%.
because that's LA. Like, we have this, you know, there's no age limit on what we do, and people come out here from all walks of life at all ages. Because of that, sometimes I see my friends who are 21, 22, 23, who are, you know, 15 years younger than I am, and I'm just like, man, like, look at you. Like, I wish that I was out here when I was your age.
Yeah.
Then imagine where I would be. But with that said, to play my own devil's advocate, I watch them and I go, oh God, I'm so glad that I'm not. I'm so glad that, because like you're making an ass of yourself, and you're
career-wise, I wish I'd been out here at like 18.
Right.
Lifestyle-wise, I'm so glad I stopped drinking before I moved out here.
So,
I mean, I drink casually, but I don't like drink.
Okay, so let's talk about that. We're first two-parter. One, when did the drinking start?
I was young. I liked drinking in high school. In a way that I think a lot of people like drinking as adults.
Really?
So like 14, 15.
Was it your friends that were around you? Like what?
Yeah, it was just like Boston. Like it's just like it's
a drunk titty.
It's an activity. You know what I mean? Like it's just something you do as an action. Like it's a thing to do.
Did the family drink at like parties?
My
like
family's like not. Like my family's like it was a friend. It was a social scene. It was go to parties, go to proms, go to, you know, I went to like 7 proms. Like it's just. I was a
we
social...
get it. You were popular,
but this.
We get it. You're attractive.
I wore this jacket.
Like
no, but like I went to a lot of social events, and when you go to a lot of social events, that habit becomes daily habit forming. And like I didn't have a daily drinking habit, but I definitely had a weekend drinking habit. Which if I had done that out here, I wouldn't be where I am. Like if I drank every weekend in LA, I wouldn't be able to work 7 days a week.
So, do you honestly think that it became like a problem?
I think it became a thing that slowed me down, and I'd rather sleep 2 hours. And if there was a pill to not sleep ever again, I'd take it.
Oh God.
Like, I'm a dude that likes
I talk
to
about
work.
that every day, but but also I am a sleepy guy. So for me, I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, I should have got up 9 hours ago.
What have I done?
Or just the same thing where I'll be like up, my brain starts like I have a hyperactive nighttime brain.
Yeah.
Like I am the most creative and the most I can do more work from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. than I can from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
And it's just programming. Like that's just how. I just don't like to ever be stalled, and I think that it gave me, like, even if it was once a week, that's once a week I could have done more.
Sure. So I'm gonna try to get some clear stamps here, just for my own understanding of the scenario. So you graduate high school.
Yep.
You're already a drinker. You're already a total party kid.
Yep.
You take a year off.
Yep. Working this whole time,
but you do know that you want to be an actor,
right?
But you're not doing anything whatsoever.
I'm in. Are
you doing like student play?
Yeah, I'm doing student films. I'm doing whatever plays I can. I hadn't done plays since high school, so in that gap, I didn't do any plays.
Right.
But I did like student films. I'd get on as many sets as I could. I worked on
in Boston.
Yeah, I like worked.
I mean, there are worse places to be, I guess. If you want to,
it's a great city. Yeah. And I did film. I did like features out there in that time. I did like Surrogates and Bride Wars, and I played Chris Pratt's brother in Bride Wars before he was Star-Lord.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I got work, but I just, hindsight's 2020, and I just feel like if I could have focused more, I would have done more.
Right.
So 14 to high school was fine.
Right.
And then that year off was fine, but I wish I could have been like out here Disney kidding, but sure enough, too Disney kid.
Right. That's the problem is you don't know if you had come out here at that age, if you would have just squandered the whole thing.
Exactly.
You'd end up home. You'd be home right now working in a supermarket.
Exactly.
Yeah. I always say that about myself. Like,
you never know. So I really appreciate the fact that I
Right.
did whatever amount of drinking I consider a judgment. I'm glad I did it before I moved out
Right.
here.
And so you go to college for a year.
Mhm.
So now you're about 20 years old.
Yep.
And you just dropped out of college.
I moved out here a few weeks after my 21st.
Gotcha. Okay.
So-
So,
and I've
you
been-
so you spent about 3 years at home after high school.
Yeah.
Or 18, 19, 20, 20. Yeah, it's about 3 years at home.
Yeah.
But
And I got my first job at 14. So I've been working from 14.
Right. So you did actually kind of move out here then when I'm talking about the kids
The
that
ideal?
I know. Well, no, yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I kept mentioning like 21,
21,
22-year-olds.
Yeah, I've been
so
out here
you
8
kind of
years.
did get out here when you were young, when you were
Yeah.
that age then.
And I did but the problem was I came out here at 21 with the starry-eyed illusions of like send out 300 headshots a day.
All right, so wait, hang on a second though. What stemmed the move?
So I was on the set of this movie called Surrogates,
Okay.
the Bruce Willis robot movie.
Right.
And at one point we were filming and they flew in 200 extras.
Right.
They flew in 100 from New York and 100 from Miami, and I was like, "Oh, you don't trust us to be props?
Right.
Peace."
Right.
I literally like within that week, I had thought about going to LA, had decided to go to LA, and was looking. Like
And-
I just couldn't.
And
hang.
what did mom and dad?
They knew it was inevitable.
Okay.
They didn't know if it was New York or LA. They knew it was coming, and they were super supportive. My family's always been so rad about all my choices. They go, okay, what's the best that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? Let's
Right.
plan for the middle. Let's go through all this stuff, and they really just helped me plan it out.
That's great. I mean, the fact that you just had that sort of direction
Yeah.
and that support system that was so were they proactive? Would you say they're proactive?
Oh, 100%. And then
Yeah.
and then when I got out here, I moved out here in November, and by the end of November, when I went home for Christmas, I ended up going home for 6 weeks. Because I was like, I don't have enough money. So my old job let me get my job back. My parents let me
right.
stay for 6 weeks. Like it was a mini move back,
Sure.
but only because I had just come out with not enough.
Gotcha.
So my parents were so supportive. They were like, come back. It's
Right.
fine. We'll sort it out.
Well, that's good. I mean, you know, I always struggle with that because I know that there are some people who are like, oh, I want to make the move to New York or wherever it is that you do the thing that you want to do. And I have a lot of people who are like, I want to go to Toronto. Like,
Yeah.
you know, stand-up scene is big there, like stuff like that. And they're like, oh, but I don't have like the security. I don't have like the trampoline. What do they call it? Not the trampoline, the net, the safety net. The trampoline. Yeah, I love the
I don't have the
trampoline.
ability to jump back up higher.
Fucking dumb metaphor is that.
I just keep bouncing. I can't find stability.
You know, like everybody has a safety trampoline. Anyways, they say like I don't have that net, and I'm sort of like, well, that's safe, like sure. But then incidentally, like if you don't have the net, then you have no option
But to
to
go.
succeed. Or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and so it's like. And that's sort of where I was, when I left New York, I moved to Florida for a while, and I had already been home, and after I'd been through my quote college years,
Yeah.
just doing nothing. Again, I meandered from 18 to 22, I think I was, before I moved to Florida, and I was just sort of like, I was just getting out of New York because I was like, I guess this is what I'm
This
going
is
to get
the
out. Like,
move?
but I still was like, I want to be an actor, but I don't know how to do that. I just
Yeah.
didn't know anything. And when I left, my house was sold back home. My
Yeah.
mother left Long Island and moved out to Buffalo.
Yeah.
I didn't have, I'm sure if I wanted to, I can go back to my godparents' house, but it's
It's
not.
a few steps removed from.
Yes, it wasn't so much as like, well, all else fails, I could just go back home because at that point,
Yeah.
home was gone. Home didn't exist anymore.
It's hard.
But also I feel like it made me realize like, oh, I have no choice, but I have to do the things I want to do. And then of course, I stayed in Florida for too long before I decided what I was supposed to be doing with my life. But
Well, I didn't
that's a
take enough.
different kind of-
I feel like I didn't take any of the stall time that might have helped if I'd fully stopped because I've always had a job. I've always been working. I've always been hustling. I've always been that. And at points, I think that's a detriment. I think you can.
Right.
I think you can work too much in that
Sure.
direction. And like right now, I'm like fully overwhelmed, but I'm so used to it that
That's great.
I go crazy when I have a day off because I'm like, oh, I'm not doing enough.
What am I doing? Why am I doing something? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think there's a middle ground.
And
to
that
be
just
found.
speaks to your work ethic. You're a fucking hustler.
Yeah, I got it. I mean, I like 9-day work weeks.
Right. So here's a question. Just to go back to the drinking thing for a moment, because I'm thinking about it. You said that when you came out here, you quote stopped drinking.
Mhm.
Like, what was it that made you say like, oh, I have to do that? Was it conscious, or was it just like, oh, I came out here and I started hustling, so I just stopped drinking?
It
Because
was.
didn't-
I'd go to young Hollywood parties. I'd go to these like parties where there'd
Right.
be kids that were working, and I'd see them look foolish. I'd see,
Oh.
and I'd be like, I don't
I don't wanna
need
be that guy. right?
And then you just hear the horror stories, and I also hangovers happen for real at 21, at least my
Right.
body. So like once I could legally drink, I was like, but then I lose half the day.
Right.
And then at 25, I was like, I lose a whole day. And now at 29, I'm like, for 2 days,
It's such a
I'm worthless.
Such a pragmatic way to view the social aspects of drinking. Like, I feel like let me say, you definitely were never going to have alcoholism. Like, no alcoholic thinks like, oh, darn it, I've lost half a day. Like,
it actively bothered me that I lost 2 to 3 hours hungover, and now that it's like a 24 to 48 hours, I'm like,
I feel like had you not been in the environment you were when you were in high school and middle school, whatever it was you started, I think you would be me. I'm completely sober. I've never drank.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I'm a total teetotaler. I've never drank.
I've noticed you're interested in my drinking, so I assumed that was one direction or the other.
Or I was an avid alcoholic.
You're like actively drinking.
Well, do you want to know why? Because I wasn't around it. My parents didn't drink. I mean, for a while, my mom's boyfriend was like a total alkie.
Yeah.
But if anything, that just reinforced like alcohol's bad. Yeah. And then like even like at big family gatherings, like my family was never like, there was always alcohol around, but there was never like the obliterated drunk people. And there was never that sort of like, hey, you guys, let's get the drinks. Like I never heard that.
Interesting.
Do you mean like I never, and my brother growing up, my brother was always like the super straight edge guy, older than me. And I wanted to be like him. By the time I was really, around alcohol and people that were drinking, I was already like, that's when I was playing in clubs and I was doing music and stand up. And at that point, I already had your mindset.
Yeah.
Of like, I don't want to look at this fucking drunk guy. He looks like a fucking idiot. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like,
yeah.
And so I feel like you and I have the exact same reasons for not drinking.
We just landed at them differently.
It's just the problem was that you started at a point like you were going to start regardless because of the people and because of the environment.
My social scene allowed for me to get to the same destination.
Whereas like I don't even think I could have started drinking at 14. People are like, oh, I started drinking at 13, 14. I was like, I don't know where I would have found alcohol. I would have had to like really sought it out. I would have had to been like, you know what? Drinking in movies looks fun.
This is the move. I'm going to find this. I'll find a way.
Right. So in any case, you're out in LA, you're 21, 22 years old. What did you say, 21?
I was a few weeks after 21, so I'm a new 21.
And like you're starting to grind, you're hustling.
Yep, doing all the cast and director workshops and
doing
acting
all the
classes
shit that everybody does.
Yep, and sending out way too many headshots.
That's awful, yeah. I just to avoid too much of the industry talk because I feel like there's so much of that out there. Everybody understands the grind. At what point did you start combining the grind with your passions?
I always loved creating things, and it wasn't until the last 3 years that I discovered that there was a market for my opinions instead of someone else's dialogue.
Right.
So it was more recent than I care to admit. That's
fine. Literally, I just started a podcast network this year. I'm fucking 35 years old. So
it's a tricky thing, what I mean? But the moment always feels too late.
Right.
And I wrote. I had a script that got tossed around, got optioned a bunch of times. I've had screenplays get bought and then sat, and that's very flattering, but at the same time,
it's hard.
Doesn't get you. And it breaks your heart. So I've always been grinding in a bunch of different ways, but the hosting thing and it was really cool. I was on the street walking I don't remember the actual before and after because the moment was so beautiful.
Mm-mm.
A kid came up to me and knew me because of my opinion about Deadpool.
On the Marvel movie?
Yeah, just in life, because I think he'd seen me on Screen Junkies, actually. Right. And because Screen Junkies had me on for Please Explain Deadpool.
Gotcha.
And he knew me from loving Deadpool.
Right.
And my first thought was, you're too young to know who Deadpool is.
Right.
My second thought was like, wait, Deadpool's mainstream? My third thought was like, you know me? And it was just this magical moment of like, I'm not known for something that someone else put me in. This is something I did myself. This is something I've loved since I was a kid.
Your name. They didn't walk up to you and say, oh, hey, look, it's blah,
thing.
blah, blah from that movie. They're like, hey, it's Coy.
And people know me as Coy, and that's a unique experience. And I like hosting panels at cons and stuff. That's unique to you for you.
Sure. So you touched on earlier that it's because of your dad that you fell in love with comics as a kid. Was he always a big comic nerd that then instilled it on you, or did he see your interests?
No, my dad actually. So I'm Spider-Man, Deadpool, and X-Men are my boys. Those are the guys.
Yeah, I'd say everything but Deadpool. Replace Deadpool for me with like Spawn. And
so I have this thing about Spider-Man and Deadpool, right? So Deadpool in the last 6 years has been written in a way that gives him so much heart that no one gives him credit for.
Yeah, and admittedly I have not read him in 6 years.
And people have been like, why do you like Deadpool? You seem like such a smart guy. And I'm like, no. Trust me. Look at what he's become.
Do you know what's funny though? When the Deadpool movie came out, I was talking to my co-host of What the Heconomics, brand new podcast on the Dragon Mag Radio Podcast Network. Boom,
See that tangent?
That's what we call.
That was a commercial.
Yeah, that's what we call doing a little
inside baseball,
little magic there. My co-host of What the Economics, Brian Finifter, and I were talking about Deadpool when the movie came out, and I was like, the problem with this is like it's going to bring this new rise in popularity. and we're going to see so much more like Deadpool stuff. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I feel like the people wearing Deadpool shirts now were the same kids wearing Korn t-shirts when we were in high school.
And that's the association. That's the problem. I'm like okay, so I have two fronts on the internet. One, I'm trying to bring Marvel and DC together as far as fandoms. Two, I'm trying to prove that people are intelligent like Deadpool. Those are my two like uphill battles. My thing with them is I think that you either live long enough, like.
All I'm saying is that when Genko jeans and everybody come back, the people wearing Deadpool shirts are going to be on top of them. Yes, exactly. Like it's going to happen.
I think you either die a Spider-Man or live long enough to see yourself become Deadpool. I think that's...
Wow, that's a beautiful piece of business.
So Spider-Man, his sense of humor and his outward defense mechanism of humor is because of him being nervous.
That was always my guy.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And like
I always saw myself in Spider-Man, like the kid from New York.
He's the underdog. He's the
nerd
guy
from New York. Yeah,
exactly.
I always saw myself, let me rephrase that. I never saw myself as Spider-Man. I saw myself as Peter Parker,
right?
Wishing that I also had Spider-Man
and that's
in
the
me.
beauty of Spider-Man. And that's why Spider-Man's so unique, and that's why he's the most recognizable, identifiable, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So to me, Spider-Man is the guy that hides his nervousness with humor and is always guilty. The guy just feels guilt like Gwen Stacy, Uncle Ben, like they write this. To me, Deadpool, when written well, is a character that hides his sadness, his brokenness, his lack of mortality, his feeling like an inhuman monster with humor.
Yeah.
But he doesn't not have responsibility. He's just masking everything that he is with jokes.
He's the broken kid who makes jokes about being broken to cover the fact that he's broken.
But like there's such a different type of humor that comes from Deadpool because when he's written well.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the fact that like it's like responsibility died and you finally lost it. You finally snapped and you became Mel Gibson. You know what I mean? You became that like next level insane. And my whole life, I've looked up to like Riggs. I've looked up to like Tom Hardy. I'm looked up to these characters that are like next level on the edge of crazy. Like Heath Ledger and Hunter S. Thompson.
You're right.
Those are all my people. And they've always had that edge of like, okay. And I feel like Deadpool is Spider-Man, but slightly untapped.
That shows our slight age difference here. For me, that's Michael Keaton. It's always been Michael Keaton.
Totally see that.
Yeah, Michael Keaton has always been my guy. Like Michael Keaton in Dream Team. People are always like, "What? Really?" I'm telling you. Michael Keaton in Dream Team is one of my favorite performances. Because, do you know the movie Dream Team? Are you familiar with it? Okay. Not many people are, so I have to ask.
Yeah.
I feel like that is one of those things where it's like this character encompasses the way I felt in like my teen years.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I'm still a little bit too old for that. Like that movie was already out for a while, but I was always that guy that was like, I was obsessed with like what was 10 years ago on VHS. Like that was But man, oh God, it's that sort of like quiet rage that like guys, I'm broken inside and I'm being really funny right now, but
good God, is it hard for me to keep this going?
Yes, exactly.
And that's Deadpool and Spider-Man isn't that.
Sure.
So when I got a little older, I still love Spider-Man, but Deadpool became like the yin to my yang. Like there's two sides to I'm actually getting a tattoo of a yin yang Spider-Man Deadpool.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's actually in my
like the faces, like the eyes.
Look at the art. I love it. Look at that. So it forms a yin yang through the character.
Oh. I like it.
To me, that's like that quote of live long enough. And we'll
have to Instagram that for the listeners.
It'll be, But so I think that's why I fell in love with Deadpool. My dad, though, he was a huge Claremont and Byrne X-Men guy.
Okay.
So I got into X-Men in the prime of X-Men because my dad was into the X-Men at that time.
Yeah.
So he got me into them. And then from there, I found Spider-Man because of the animated series.
Was your dad kind of a nerdy dude? I mean, he worked in computers and printing and shit like that.
What's cool about my dad is he's a lot like me in that he is a visual bro but nerd. Like I like.
Okay, wait, no, shut up, shut your face, shut your face.
Run with this
because that is you are such a visual bro,
right?
When I first met Coy, it was the aforementioned Rocky Horror Hipster Show. He's wearing a little banana hammock. Or no, I'm sorry. Underneath his short shorts, if I'm not mistaken, like short jean shorts, and he's like fucking irritatingly jacked. Like he is, like as a guy who's been skinny fat since I've been 23 years old. Like I was really fit for those 3 years, from like 20 to 23. Man, I was cycling I was fucking like the little, and then I just was a skinny fat kid, and now I'm cusping fat guy. I'm slowly transitioning. You look like the kind of guy who if you grew your hair out, you would have a man bun.
Oh, 100%. I did for a bit, man.
Fuck,
yeah,
get
that's
out
right.
of
I'm done. We're out. I'm out. I've been kicked out of the booth.
No, you're right. You are a visual. You are you have the bro aesthetic.
100%. I look like Flash Thompson, not Peter Parker. Like, that's the problem. You know what I mean?
And not the new Middle Eastern Flash Thompson.
No. I'm straight.
Which I really enjoyed.
He's great. No, I'm 60s comic Flash Thompson.
You were totally the guy that took my girlfriend in high school.
I'm John Romita Senior drawn Flash Thompson. So the problem is, like, I grew
and he's
up
similar to you.
Oh, 100%. So I grew up in that vein of, like, you can be a nerd and you can be really smart, but you can be like a jacked handsome guy.
Right.
So it's been really hard to actually transition into people judging my comicdom because I always hit it.
There is this very weird, and I know this because I've partaken in it, and that is that, like, no, fuck you, like, you're attractive, like, this is my thing, like, this is my thing.
I have
this is like the reason why I associate with these things is because people that looked like you made me feel like shit in my youth. And, like, do you know what I mean? And that is a very real thing. Whenever I meet one of these, like, freaking, you know, I live in LA. Every guy out here looks like he's a goddamn fucking Abercrombie model. And it's just like, whenever I meet one of these dudes who's just so handsome, I hate him. I just want to kiss him and then smack him because he's just so gorgeous.
Why are you doing this?
Like, when someone is just like, and then they're also, like, really kind of fun and nerdy, I get bothered by it. I'm, like, irritated.
See?
Yeah.
For years, for a good 2 decades, that was the struggle. And my dad was this great example of, like, no, you can also be, like, smart, handsome, jacked, and read comics. So like I said, like, I have the greatest respect for my dad, and he made it okay to like comics.
That's
and
great.
work out. Like, we both love Joe Rogan. Like, there's a lot of parallels. Like, you know what I mean? Joe Rogan is like the exhibit A of, like, the archetype that I aspire to. Like, podcast, intelligent, doesn't stop, has 8 jobs.
Yeah, dude's a workhorse.
Yeah, dude. If I can be half as productive as Joe Rogan, I'll be doing it right.
So you're obviously this giant comic nerd instilled on you from your father. He must love that you're now doing this in a public fashion.
It's funny because I'd meet a bunch of actors, I'd work on these sets, and I'd be, like, so excited to tell my mom, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, you met blah blah blah," and, like, when I met Tom Cruise, it was game changer. But then my dad was always like, "That's a person." Like, he would acknowledge that it was cool to me. But then I went to the Stan Lee event this year, and where Stan Lee was being honored, and I got to meet Stan Lee, and I had, like, a conversation with Todd McFarlane, and I had, like, all these things, and it was my dad literally in silence on the phone, just being like,
that's that.
Dreamed. And that was the moment where I was like, I did it. I made my dad have the moment my mom has.
I had a moment, like, when I first moved out here to LA. When I first moved out here, I was already doing stand-up for quite a while. And, you know, stand-up is an interesting world where the second you start, you are the coworkers with all of your favorite people because, like, I'm just hosting for whoever the headliners are. And so I got very kind of jaded to the, like, person I watch on TV. Like, and I know this sounds like I'm trying to sound all cool. Like, I don't care about celebrities. It's just the unfortunate truth. Like, especially then you move out here and you do fucking extra work and you get to watch people like fucking assholes. You know what I mean? And you're just like,
and you're like, oh, that's
you know what I mean? Like, and so I just don't care about, like, very rarely do I get excited about, like, seeing somebody. Then I go to Comic-Con and literally, like, I was at Comic-Con not that long ago. And he was just walking to his fucking signing, and I literally bumped shoulder to shoulder with Jim Lee. And he's a tiny little man. And I, like, did that thing where I turned around just to say sorry. And then it was Jim Lee. And I'm not exaggerating. I think I peed a little. And I immediately was just like, like, I didn't know the words that I wanted to say. And I was just like, you're everything, life, my life, my childhood. What? Like, and I didn't make a sentence. And then he kind of, like, nodded and walked away. And then I was just like, did anybody, and you would think that he's a guy that can't walk the floor, but I think he's so nondescript. And I think most comic book artists and writers can probably get away with that shit versus most, like, especially because now that there are so many TV and movie stars there that people aren't noticing. But
they're not looking at Comic-Con.
I had a conniption when I bumped into this.
100%, dude. I totally get it. And that's I'm lucky and also unlucky in that I have maintained, I'm out here 8 years. I've worked on so many sets. I've done the thing. I still freak out like a 12-year-old when I see
Really?
stuff.
Do you?
And, like, for better or worse, like, sometimes it's great because I get to feel that rush, but at the same time, I'm like, God damn, I'm working. Be a professional, man. And it hasn't faded. Like, I love The only thing I love about celebrity is the fact that you can make someone's day by existing. When I can make a kid's day
Just
when they meet me because they know it,
being there.
just by that. And I think that's why I've subconsciously tried to keep the fact that these people can make my day by existing. Like I can drive down the street and see like Jason Segel walk by, and I'm not even that big of, but I can still go and like it doesn't.
My thing is like I mean, I totally get that, and that's why, for example, if I do see somebody that I really admire in a scenario that is not inappropriate to say hello, I will. Not that long ago, I was in freaking Target, just walking along, and I saw Matt Walsh from the Upright Citizens Brigade, just like with his kids shopping in the back section of Target.
Yeah,
there's nobody else around, and I'm walking by, and I make eye contact with him, and I'm immediately just like, oh hey. And then I realized, and then I just simply say like, hey man, I've been a fan for a long time. Thanks for everything you've done. And he goes like, oh, thanks. And I'm like, I want that moment because I hope that makes him feel nice in that moment. That some random. And then I heard his kid go like, Daddy, what did that man say to you? Aww. And he said that he liked my work. It was very nice. And I heard him say that to his kid.
You got the validation.
And I was like, oh, thank God.
Oh,
that
I did the right thing. I did the good.
I'll do that. Like I still, when I see someone that I enjoy, I'll say like, oh hey, I love this guy like that. But I don't get the giddiness.
Yeah, and I think that like that will one day fade, and it should.
It's also
have
because
by
I'm
now.
just so bitter.
Yeah, so I have this impossible like. I'm extremely pessimistic about everything I'm doing, i.e. the judging drinking, which didn't get out of hand, i.e. taking a year off and thinking I've failed at 29. Like I judge my stuff.
Sure.
But as a dude, I'm the most optimistic. So it's weird. It's a horrible dichotomy. Like I pity anyone that dates me because they're always like, why are you so mad at you but so happy about everyone else?
Right, yeah.
Like I never think I'm doing enough, but I also think like, look how great the world is, except about me.
Yeah, I'm sort of that way too. I always like, my problem is that I have this very pessimistic persona where people are like, oh, Jake, he's a curmudgeon, and he's like, yet simultaneously, like I love people and I will do anything I can to help anybody.
Yeah.
Like there's been a debate on this program because I've mentioned this before, and I think that Matt Hinksman, previous guest of the show and good friend of mine, coined this phrase, and he was like, oh, I didn't say that, so I don't know where it came from, but like it's that Jake is the guy that you assume hates you but is the only guy that shows up to help you move.
That is beautiful.
Like,
I love
do you know what I mean?
That's
like,
great.
that's like,
yeah, that summarizes so much.
And it's because like, oh no, we're all in this together, everybody. And it's like, I thought you fucking hated me because you said that shit about me that day. I was like, well, it's because you were being an asshole that day.
You deserved it. I'm right here though.
Yeah, I still like, and I'm that sort of way too, where I'm like, everything's gonna be great, every guys. We're all gonna do this together.
Yeah.
Also, I don't deserve to live anymore.
Right. And it's like this horrible trying to explain that to someone that doesn't see the world that way is impossible. And and it's exhausting on the internet because I do so much like live or so much like that involves my personality that people assume I'm being fake, or people assume I'm pandering, or people assume, and especially with how I look when I'm talking about like comics, and they're like, "Who is this guy that is pretending to be one of us?"
You're enthusiastic, you're passionate. That's good. Aren't you supposed to be that?
That's the right. So it's hard when you got to stop reading YouTube comments.
So I asked you the question earlier, and I think we kind of like jumped around. We got tangential with things we like, which I knew was going to happen with this one. I was like, it's gonna be hard to stay on track with Coy.
You got a comic corner,
So. At what point are you able to make comics a thing that you can mix with the hustle? Like, I know you said like, oh, I just thought it's like, did you start doing it on your own online? Like, when did the Marvel podcast?
So I did this thing on Bite Size Networks, which was a network, I don't even know if they still exist, called Comic Sense. And it was a basically 5-6 minute bite-sized short about news and comics that
When
week.
you say you did it, what do you mean? Did you produce it? Did you come up with it?
My buddy Jesse McKeel, who's at Geek and Sundry now, he wasn't Nerdist for a bit, he's at Geek and Sundry. He approached me, he's like, hey, I'm producing a Bite Size. Do you want to like figure out a comic show we can do together?
Right.
So he and I produced it, I wrote it, I hosted it. So that was my introduction to what this could be.
Right.
And it just didn't work out long term, but short term, and it caused that spark.
Right.
And that was like 3-4 years ago. And then when that show ended, Matt Key, who was my co-host on Marvel Movie News, was like, hey, man, I just started this. He was like 30 episodes in at the time. He's like, I just started this Marvel Movie News podcast. Do you want to come on as a guest?
Right.
I went on as a guest once, and it was like, do you want to like do this? Yeah, let's do this. And then from episode like 30 something on,
awesome. And
now we're at 160.
Nice.
And Matt just left a couple weeks back. So Matt's not at the company anymore. He's at Geek and Sundry now, but
it was a sort of a snowball.
Yeah.
Like where you were like,
accelerated.
I'm in this nerd world now, and now other people know I'm in this nerd world, and I'm clearly an entertaining guy. I'm a good host. I can speak. I can put together sentences, which is a rare thing in that online community.
It's passion. Like it's actual passion.
And I will say this, like, I struggle to the aforementioned pessimism and stuff like that, and the abundant bitterness. Is I definitely struggle with that sort of like, there are so many people online in that nerd culture who just, I'm sorry, just have no right being in front of a camera. And I'm like, I get that you may really like this nerd shit, but you also have to be a host. Like, you gotta, like, there's no, because people don't approach this with any sort of broadcasting or performance background, and it's hard. So whenever I watch you, I'm always like, good on
there's
you, Coy.
one.
Good on you,
Well,
Coy.
there's the Venn diagram.
Thanks
there's
for that.
people that are passionate and people that can host, and it's so rare to find someone in the middle. And that's why I'm really proud of what work I've done.
I feel like some people tend to fail upwards.
Yeah, 100%.
In that world right now.
And Screen Junkies really helped in the beginning. They pulled me on for Deadpool, so that would have been 2 years ago.
Right.
And once that started, I really when I walking into that studio, I was like, oh, I can make a living out of this.
Right.
And then I started accelerating the hustle because I was like, oh, if this is viable.
Right. And so where do you see the upcoming, months and years for you then? Because you've got, obviously you're continuing to do all this stuff. It is eventually going to be quite time consuming. The more shows you're doing,
Dude,
you're hustling like a motherfucker.
I've got, I think.
You don't think the acting is behind you, do you?
No. I just, right now I've got at any given time between 4 and 6 shows. I do my own daily content. I'm writing. I just started a new writing thing. It's to the point now where I looked at my schedule in September, took my birthday off, and was booked out through January. And I was like, that was my moment of like, I have 3 months of my life already figured out. That's terrifying. Yeah. So I want to get this to a point where it's sustainable without, like, I don't want to keep lighting the fires. So once I get the hosting to a point where the fire is roaring, then I want to dive back into acting. Like, I just want to not have to nurture it every few seconds. Yeah. So I want to get a hosting thing settled, and then
I can empathize with that. Like, I've got a lot of things that like I'm doing, or that I'm starting and that sort of thing. And it's like, I have to figure out a way to continue all the things that I'm doing and also figure out a way to make money and to then also pursue the things that I'm not.
Because irons in the fire is great, but you can't keep relighting the fires. Yeah. And once that's settled, I want to get back to acting, especially with my newfound like comfort, because
do you think that all this hosting has just helped with your psyche and stuff like that? Like, because this is something that I'm a leading question, of course.
Because I do.
Well, you know what it is that I have just noticed that, like you said earlier, of like, oh, these are my words. Mm-hmm. This is like, I can put myself out there. I feel like there's part of that that's a lot more rewarding.
Yeah.
Because of what you mentioned of like somebody came up to you and they knew Coy. They didn't know, Bill from that movie or whatever your character, do you think that has instilled something more in you that wasn't there before you started doing this hosting stuff?
I think that would be like a 15-20% of it. But I think the biggest thing that's changed is I think I've grown more since like 25 than I did in many years leading up to 25.
Yeah, I think that's most people.
Yeah. So, and I just, that's kind of when I started falling out of acting into hosting. So I think it's more about the time and growth. Like, I feel like I as a human have grown. So I think I didn't have enough life experience to do the acting work I felt like I could have. And now that I've had life experience, I've been through things, and I'm more comfortable on camera, and I'm more comfortable with who I am, then my acting is going to improve because I'm a better person.
Sure. It's all building blocks.
Yeah, like you can't really portray something that is so alien to you. And I think going back into it, having experienced a lot and having also fought this hard, like I doing this many things, I think will help me appreciate what set is and can be.
Right. Well, I still don't know what's wrong with you.
That's
kind of a problem.
Is mine the couch?
It's kind of a problem.
I can't.
You seem to be pretty together.
Not conceptually
together. Maybe it's all a facade.
That's what I worry that I've done that to myself.
Maybe this last hour has just been bullshit. And
dude, my fear is when I take it off and I find my own mask removes and I go like, what has my facade been like?
Right.
Optimism, pessimism. It's right there.
You're a goddamn delight. And I am thrilled at all of your current success, and I hope for continued success. I especially look forward to being on Marvel Movie News one day soon. See what I did there? I put it out there.
Look at that. Now, He's 2 in this one
now
episode. I'm impressed.
He also doesn't have a choice now.
And now it's forever.
He's going to be like, people are going to be like, how come you never...
It's on the internet.
Everything that's on the internet has to happen.
It happened with Fox and Marvel today, so yeah.
Truth. By the way, did you see the thing? Simpsons did it again.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
It's creepy. It's starting to get creepy.
At this point, I worry. Like, I'm going to start watching episodes now for what I need to prepare for in 6 years.
Truth. What do you want to put out there to the world? Obviously, Marvel Movie News. How do people find that? How do people find you? How do people find all the things that are happening?
So Twitter is my favorite thing because it's concise and fast. I love finding people there. So at CoyJandreau on Twitter and Instagram. And I recently in the last few months started this thing called Insta Reviews, where I basically review things that I love or you love in a minute. So I'm using Instagram as a platform to kind of give very concise ADD centric reviews of everything I love, be it TV, books, movies, whatever experiences. But I love the internet. I love the connection with people, and I love zeal. I love sharing like passion for things. So I think that life is better with the internet. So FCC. Maybe do something about it. But yeah, I think that if you have enjoyed anything on the internet in the last 10 years, you deserve a phone call or 7 to someone. So I really think that the internet can be the thing that saves us from ourselves and not the thing that kills us. And I think that using that to entertain and enlighten and educate is my goal. So you were saying long term, I want to be Ellen. I want to just be the force of positivity behind the internet. I want to make kids that felt like we did about not being able to like comics for opposite reasons.
Sure.
Be able to not only love comics, but love themselves, and be able to not even understand what a bully is because they love Spider-Man more than they love that thing. Like, I think that
I love that.
You need to find solace in what you are and what the world presents to you. And then you can do anything. Like the fact that I've been able to do this with what I was given is a testament to life just working for you. So just believe and find things you love.
Shit, I love that. Find things you love. Speaking of things that I love, people can find me on Twitter at Liquid Jake. Instagram is just Jake Lloyd. Please follow at Elaborate Pod on all social media. And of course, at It's Dragon Wagon for all things Dragon Wagon Radio. It is the holiday season. And if you enjoyed this podcast, if you enjoy any podcast on Dragon Wagon Radio, you can do your part by visiting the Amazon wishlist. Dragon Wagon Radio now has an Amazon wishlist. Simply go to dragonwagonradio.com/donate and there'll be a link. There are all sorts of things on that wish list, big and small. Stuff like coffee and TP to keep our guests comfortable, to computers and things that we need electronically, production stuff. No matter what your budget is, there's something on the wish list that will help the studio, that will help Dragon Wagon Radio. This is a completely independent network. We do not make any money. We spend lots of money and make none of it. And if you were enjoying this and you'd like to give, you'd like to do your part, please check out the Amazon wishlist. Once again, dragonwagonradio.com/donate. Do not forget, the world is a series of shades of gray, and that sympathy and empathy are the next advancement in human evolution. Thank you guys so much for listening. Coy, thank you so much for being here. I love you, bud.
It was so much fun, man. Pleasure.
He didn't say I love you back.
I love you too on the internet, so it's forever and it's real. He's going to edit the part where he asked me to, so I'm just going to yell, I love you too.
Hey, everybody. I'm sitting here with Cheryl Jones, host of the Movies Made Me podcast. How's it going, Cheryl?
Fine. How are you?
Great. Can you tell me a little bit about your podcast?
Yes. We talk about the movies that have influenced you to be who you are.
That sounds like a really hard thing to decide on.
It is. What's one of your influential movies?
Oh, hands down, one of my most influential movies is City Slickers.
I knew that because you've been on my show.
It's true. Oh, it's all a facade.
Hollywood.
How do people listen?
They can listen at mmmpodcast.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and iHeartRadio.
It's Dragon Wagon.